The Infragistics WebChart has the ability to allow developers to annotate data. So for example, in this chart we have a line annotation, then we could show a box annotation, we have an ellipse annotation, as well as a call-out annotation. Now annotations are important if you want to point something out on the chart. For example, if you have some data that represents sales and salespeople, you could point out an overachiever or an underachiever with any one of these annotations. Annotations can be designated according to the position on the chart itself, given X and Y coordinates, or you can design annotations to point out certain values themselves within your data source. So they're very flexible. You could also create custom annotations, so if you can draw a graphic, you can do that as well and use your own custom rendering to create your own annotation. The Infragistics NetAdvantage ASP.NET WebChart also has the ability to be composited. In other words, you can create a chart which is essentially one control, and there are multiple charts all within this one chart control. So you can overlay them or place them on top of each other, or pretty much configure the chart however you want. Here's an example where we have one chart control with multiple chart areas, and each chart area consists of column chart. And here's the sample data that is being bound to each chart area. In this example, we're showing a chart where we have multiple axes. You can associate axes with the actual series as well. Here's an example of when a composite chart consists of multiple chart types. So you could essentially create any type of chart you like by compositing and overlaying layers on top of each other. That way you can compare multiple series together. Whenever working with composite charts, you can also combine all of the series together in one legend, as we see here in this example. We have multiple types of series overlaid on one chart area, and all of these series are represented in one legend. And then you can configure the legend to show up on various places on the chart, such as top, bottom, left, or right, just by simple property setting. And in this example, we're showing you how the chart renders when you configure the visible property on each series object. Another event example that is very useful to developers that allows extensibility and drawing of your own graphics on the chart is the fill scene graph event. That's a server-side event that fires. This event, when fired, gives you the opportunity to access the event arguments and access the graphics objects and pretty much draw whatever you want within the chart with an elegant way of accessing the values, the shapes that are already on the scene, and many other graphics objects that are actually rendered by the chart itself. So you can essentially discover whenever certain data bars or points or whatever chart it is that you're using are created, and you could query them and access their underlying data values and then perform operations such as drawing lines or adding additional graphics and essentially anything you want. This is where you can extend the chart to contain graphics and objects that aren't included in the intrinsic APIs themselves. The chart has the ability to show tooltips by default, and the tooltips labels, series labels, and scale items can all be customized to show whatever information you wish. In this example, we're showing you how the custom tooltips are shown. Essentially, you create a class that implements an interface called iRenderLabel, and within that class that implements that interface, you essentially get passed values, and you write code to examine the values and then return a string that represents what you want the label to say. The chart has a feature that's built in that allows you to swap rows and columns. So in other words, if this is the way you're getting your data and you wish it was kind of transposed, rather than changing the data source itself to look that way, an easy thing you could do is swap rows and columns. on the chart, and the chart kind of reads it differently. So notice how the chart gets changed whenever I click this. Here we have these values and numbers on this scale, and when I change it around, it's pretty much transposed so that the rows become columns and vice versa.
Infragistics. On the web at infragistics.com.